From Jake Gyllenhaal fighting Conor McGregor,
to Alex fighting for his life in a 4DX screening of Godzilla Kong.
this week we're discussing Godzilla Kong, Ricky Stanicky, Roadhouse, and Breathless.
This is the film angle.
Hello.
Hello, Alex.
How you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you. You?
I'm doing very good. I'm doing very
Such
good.
a cold open to start with, just hello.
You never know what to do after the from, you know. Today we got a bumper episode for you. We had a bit of an impromptu break, just in terms of, I don't know, I guess Easter break got in the way and going away and all kinds of
Yeah.
stuff. So
I was
unfortunately,
ill a little bit.
yeah, you were
too.
ill. Oh yeah, that was it. That was the main thing, wasn't it? You were ill.
Yeah.
We had a break, but it meant that we can come back now with a bumper episode for everyone.
Oh yeah.
I
This is
feel
a
like we haven't spoken about more than 2 to 3 films in a while, so we got 4 films for you today, and they're all very, very different. We're talking Godzilla X Kong, The New Empire, though apparently you're not supposed to say the X.
No, I think it's Godzilla Kong.
Godzilla Kong, which we also saw in 4DX, which was my first time in 4DX, so we'll be able to discuss that a little bit as well.
And possibly your last.
Definitely my last. We are, and then what we promised everyone was the Amazon Prime double bill, Ricky Stanicky, and the new Roadhouse remake with Jake Gyllenhaal and Conor McGregor. Yes.
Yeah, I love it. Everybody keeps saying, like, with Jake Gyllenhaal and Conor McGregor, he's like 10 minutes of the movie.
Just like Godzilla in Godzilla Kong, The New Empire. He
stand
makes an
corrected.
impact.
Yeah,
he makes
you're
an impact.
I'll give him that.
It should have been called Jake X Connor.
Jake Connor.
The Roadhouse.
The Roadhouse.
And then finally, but you know, last and not least, Jean-Luc Godard's Breathless. A blind spot for Chris, but not for me, as we've stated before. And we're going to find out if it's a love or hate relationship we have with good old JGL.
Yeah, it is a relationship, so we'll get to that.
It is a relationship. But yeah, let's start with the latest release, Godzilla Kong: The New Empire, which follows on from their Godzilla versus Kong. I can't remember if that had a colon something. I don't think it did. I think it was just.
I think
Godzilla.
it was just that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it was just that. They have fought and they have teamed up to take down Mecha Godzilla, but they've gone their separate ways. And Godzilla just kind of is the Titan kaiju policeman of Earth, and Kong is down in Hollow Earth.
Yeah.
Trying to figure life out. But turns out there's a new threat, and they must team up once more to stop that new threat from arising.
Yeah. And that threat is more
Evil.
Kong-like beings that live in the
Hollow Earth.
Hollow Earth, yeah.
The anti-Kong with his icy Godzilla.
Yeah, and Godzilla sleeps in the Roman Colosseum.
Probably one of my favorite aspects of the new film is just the way Godzilla curls up like a little
It's
dog.
like a dog bed, yeah.
In the Roman Colosseum. Yeah, this was a film that I think I was somewhat excited for. Not in any kind of like, oh god, I can't wait to see that, but I love watching Godzilla on film.
Yeah.
You know, we're both big fans of Godzilla -1, the superior kind of telling of that story. And I think we've both been kind of like on the fence, but maybe lightly positive on the MonsterVerse stuff that's come prior.
Okay.
All the way from 10 years ago with Gareth Edwards' Godzilla, up until now.
It's odd in terms of sequels like that. It's weird that these are sequels to that film because that Gareth Edwards film felt grounded to a certain degree. Like it took itself seriously. I think it's fair to say. But the problem is with that film, and I think the subsequent 2 sequels, I thought Godzilla vs. Kong was pretty fun, but they were just boring. I think that's the thing for me. The human characters, which is something that Godzilla minus one gets really, really right, is that the characters are really interesting. But here, they're just boring. They're just dull. And I think that this new movie, Godzilla Kong and the Empire, gets it right where it's like, yeah, we kind of know they're dull.
Yeah.
Anyway, here's these big ass monsters beat the crap out of each other, and that is the joy of the experience, really. And I had no expectations. I'd seen this trailer to death before going to see this, and I was ready to be bored. Surprisingly, I wasn't.
Yeah, I remember you laughing a lot at Godzilla and Kong running next to each other in the trailer.
Oh, it's hilarious! It's the poster. It's the poster, right? Yeah, it's like a
Yeah.
Nick Nolte sort of 48 hours like 80s buddy cop movie front cover. I love it.
Yeah, I do love how their sizes just change from film to film. I feel like
Yeah,
they
I have no
const
idea how big they are.
not a clue, and you don't really get a good sense of scale. I think that was where Gareth Edwards had such a good sense of scale in that first film.
With the
So much
airdrop,
so that
yeah.
you barely see Godzilla in it. It's all kind of these kind of human level shots of him, just to show just how kind of huge and empowering he is. Um, Kong Skull Island definitely didn't feel like Kong was as big. He was
No,
definitely a smaller monkey there, but
I
not.
think he's bigger than he is in like the Peter Jackson one. But in Peter Jackson's, like, I think he was so well designed in that movie that like he just felt very like oppressive and very like larger than even in this one it does. I think this, yeah, they're the same size, Godzilla and Kong, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I don't
they've
know why
kind
we're
of,
talking.
which, but I definitely feel like Kong was a lot smaller than Godzilla in the new film, as in, sorry, in the Versus film, and then they kind of felt similar size in this one.
Yeah, I mean,
They
I
can't.
can't.
I think this is the thing with this latest MonsterVerse film, is they've kind of given up in terms of like trying to take it seriously. I think it's very much like that's gone out the window, and Godzilla Kong is just it's a Saturday morning cartoon now, isn't it? Like the humans aren't even a B plot really; they're kind of a C plot. They're so nothing in this film, and there's
Yeah.
such caricatures of themselves that it's just there to have some dialogue.
Yeah, I think you're right when you say B movie because watching this, I actually felt like I've seen the first proper modern day B movie. I felt like, especially when we get later on, we get into all the Hollow Earth Temple tribe stuff and all that. It reminded me of those like big polystyrene sets you get in those 40s, 50s schlocky B movies where everybody, this all this human shit happening, like nobody cares, but everything else going on in the background, all the stupid dumb fun is kind of why the audience is there. And I felt like that was kind of like the modern like embodiment of that. That's where and also it was just, I think this movie's self-aware, Alex, and I think that's
Yes.
where it gets away with a lot for me. Is it is just, it knows it's dumb. It is so dumb, this movie. I can't even tell you half of what was going on with the human characters. All I knew was when action was happening, it was both pretty dazzling, but also hilarious. I mean, like,
Yes.
there's this scene where like Colin ends up becoming like a surrogate dad for this little red chimp who's like probably still the size of a building, but he looks like he's 2 feet tall. And there's a scene where he has to fight off a bunch of other like Colin adjacents, and he ends up grabbing the little guy. And just swinging, using him as a bat and whacks everybody around him. And then they end up forming this like bond where, like I said, he becomes like a surrogate parent to him. And yeah, I think that's where the movie really shines. It's almost like a silent film when Colin's on the screen. Like whenever
Yeah.
he goes down to the Hollow Earth and he comes across the bad guys in this movie, there's like a 20-minute segment of this film where we interact with the final boss bad guy here. And yeah, and they're kind of just riffing off each other, and there's no dialogue, but you're kind of in on it. I think that's kind of where the movie's at its best.
Yeah, I agree. I think considering Godzilla has first billing, this is definitely more of a Kong film than it is anything else. So whoever Godzilla's agent is doing a very good job.
Oh yeah,
This is Kong's film. He is the main character, and like you said, yeah, this is practically like watching a silent film half the time. You are just going off the kind of, the kind of facial interactions that a monkey has with another monkey. But I mean, like again, CGI wise, I wouldn't say it was anything like groundbreaking, but it works within the world of the film. It's very,
Yes.
it's very kind of cartoony. It's not going for like fully realistic, but it just kind of works. Nothing feels out of place. You know, I would say the effects probably aren't nearly as good as what they were in the original Godzilla 10
I think
years
you're right.
ago.
I think you're right.
But I also think there's less
There's no
smoke and mirrors.
shadow. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's no everything's out in the open.
Yeah, you see a lot of full body shots of Godzilla, and there's even like an anti-gravity fight at the end. So you're literally just seeing them kind of floating around, kicking things, and it like it's so silly. It kind of made me appreciate it because of how silly it was.
hmm
Um,
What
that
a
they kind of realized they weren't like if they bought too much into the mega serious side of what this franchise could have been, and what a lot of kind of American remakes tend to be, is
mhm.
maybe take these things a little too seriously. So yeah, I had fun. I love it, not really, but you know,
Okay. Well, what did you think about the 4DX experience
yeah.
of it?
All
What
right, so,
because
so
I think we have completely different views on our experiences with this medium.
completely, completely. So first of all, lot of fun going to see a 40X with you, Chris. A lot of,
Good,
you
good.
know, I'd never seen a 40X film before. We don't have a 40X cinema in Bristol, so I went back to Plymouth for Easter and said, if we're going to watch any film in 40X, I think this one's okay because I don't care too much. I can switch off my brain, and that was correct. I missed a lot of this film because I was being shaken out my chair. Now I wasn't fully prepared for just how much the chairs move.
Neither
I
was I.
it was quite a lot, and I didn't mind it when it kind of like drifts around in a few places and stuff like that. But there's a lot of fight scenes in this film, and there's a lot of things hitting the ground and being thrown around. Okay, so every action scene, I
You
was
sound
being
like such an old man.
I, I can't help it. I can't help it. I don't know how you didn't feel the same way. I was literally gripping onto the chair as the chair was throwing me about during every action scene. I couldn't follow the action scenes for that reaon. I
You're
don't know
so
how you
right
didn't
though.
have this
Like
problem.
you're so right. Actually, it is like being in like a minor car crash for about 2 hours. Your head is just constantly being ragdolled. Like there were moments like you're trying to stay stable and like parallel with the screen, but your chin like just dips down and you're like you just completely ragdoll, and
Yeah.
there are certain sections you just miss. But that's it caught me off guard because I've been to 40X before, and I always remembered it as going like, oh, it's yeah, it moves a bit. But I don't know, they just turned it up really high for this movie because it caught me real off guard. I was laughing my whole every action scene. It was just so it was hilarious how much this was tossing me around. I mean, and then watching everybody else, like it was a full screen too, I would say,
Yeah,
pretty much.
it was very
And to
full,
see
wasn't it?
everybody else get thrown around the
There
room,
was a guy
it's
in
like,
front of us who literally looked like he was fighting for his life. He was coming out of his chair and then like into the air. And
yeah,
I wondered what I looked like to some people. And I was trying to figure out like, oh, if I lean back into it, does that help? Or if I
yeah,
or if I lean forward a little bit, does that help? Neither helps.
you know,
Neither helps.
yeah. Don't bring
It
food
is
or
all
drink.
rubbish. Yeah, no food. You couldn't have popcorn in this. Anytime it went quiet, I was like, can I have the water before it starts
and
moving
then
again?
and then you start your hand froze back as soon as you try to take a sip.
I've never been so appreciative of still moments. And if there's one way to make you care about the humans in this film, it's the fact that every time they're on screen, you were guaranteed that the chairs weren't going to move as much. And
Oh my.
every Godzilla film, you are waiting for that final showdown at the end. You're anticipating it. You know, Godzilla versus Kong. You're excited to see that showdown. Though they fight about 3 times in that movie, but you know they're going to fight Mecha Godzilla and going to team up, and it's going to be so freaking cool. And you know they're going to team up at the end of this film and take down Scar King and whatever the icy Godzilla was called.
Yeah.
Showa, I don't know. And
Yeah, slave boy.
Slave Boy, Slizzard. Um, and yeah, I dreaded that fight because I knew it was going to be 20 minutes of just absolute
Oh,
mayhem, and I was I was almost correct because I think it was about 10 minutes of
It was definitely the
uncontrollable.
longest fight, yeah,
And it was too much. I didn't know what was going on.
where they completely flatten the entire city of Rio de Janeiro.
Yeah, I want to see all the action again because there were bits of it because doesn't there's like full blown wrestling moves in the
Oh,
final
it's
scene,
hilarious.
right? Like
Yeah.
Godzilla like picks up Kong and body slams him or something.
Yeah, yeah, there's proper like WWE moves going on with Godzilla here. It's so round the pyramids in Egypt. It's hilarious. Um, but yeah, and yeah, because they both before they team up, they both spot each other. Godzilla's in Gibraltar, and Kong's just came out of the Hollow Earth underneath the pyramids, and they both see
Yeah,
each other, and they're
which
like, "You fucker, I remember you," and they they
and
both
it's
go at
cut
it.
in a way that like you can see the pyramids from Gibraltar. That is that geographically correct?
No, I think it's more just like
No.
I think it's more a visual thing where they're just like, I smell Godzilla. I
Oh,
smell,
like
I got
you're here.
he's near.
He's near. Yeah, well, I guess that was his whole thing, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Uh, yeah. Where are the? I've just got the maps up. Yeah, we're not. Oh yeah. Oh no, they're
they're
not
like
even.
they're like at the wrong angle from each other.
Yeah, he got there quick. He got there quick. To be fair,
He's king of the monsters.
yeah, he got there quick, I guess. But yeah, no, it's ridiculous. The whole thing is ridiculous.
I
But
did
yeah, that
like
fight scene, I want to see it again. It looks like it could be pretty cool, but I was blacking out at parts of
mm,
it, and the screen was just a blur as I was
a lot of
being
water
flung
too.
out of my chair. Yeah, a lot of water, so you're being spat on from the sprinklers and stuff in the
Yeah,
cinema.
I did like the utilization. You know, the way we follow Godzilla, like we get like 1 minute of him per 20 minutes of the movie. Like we get a little cut of him on his little journey. There was like a
Yeah.
nighttime scene where it's like a dark, stormy night. And I really loved like the way the 40X used that because they used like strobe effects to like simulate
Yes.
like a nighttime storm. And like that was pretty cool. Like I found that pretty immersive.
That was
Um,
good. It was weird though because like we know Godzilla to be the good guy in this world, but then all of a sudden he's like trampling through a nuclear power plant and Earth just sends all of its like drones onto him and
yeah.
then just start firing at him and I'm just like this doesn't work. Like what are you
Well,
doing?
I think they know. I think they're expecting like this could be your first film of this franchise. It will make no difference to you. Honestly, you will not be any worse for this movie or any better.
No.
If you haven't seen the rest, don't worry. You can go see this fine. As I don't remember the other ones, so it was absolutely fine to follow this. What did you think? We just haven't mentioned the human characters. What do we think of Rebecca Hall? You know, Tyree Henry, Dan Stevens. He's having fun.
Yeah, I'm big fan of Dan Stevens. He's a breath of fresh air in this.
Trapper, I think his name is Trapper. Yeah,
Trapper, yeah, he's the Titan vet,
dentist.
dentist, whatever you need him to be.
Yeah,
But also a bit of like a dude and comedic relief. Though to be fair, like him and Brian Tyree Henry are they are both the comedic relief in
yeah,
this.
yeah.
So they're kind of fighting for that kind of role, but at the same time they're also kind of bros in this. Um Rebecca Hall, God, I do feel sorry for her
It's
trajectory as an actress.
it's a very thankless role. This 100%.
Yeah,
The exposition dump, really. Um, yeah, her and her
yeah,
daughter. Her daughter is like psychic and can summon Mothra, who chimes in and helps out in the fight in the end too. Um, so yeah, that
yeah.
stuff was really that's the stuff where I switched off and I was like, this is nice. Where are the monsters? Let me swing me around my chair
See,
a little
I,
bit more,
I
please.
wouldn't say I was fully engaged with the human story at that point, but it was just kind of nice not to be beaten up in my chair. So I was
So
happy for those
we've
moments.
got one of us is endorsing it, one of us is flat out
Yeah. So,
saying don't do it.
do you think this is the way to see Godzilla
I
Kong?
think I think this is the only way to watch it.
No,
Like I give this a 3.5 in my letterbox. I know that's a strong review, but
that's
I
a
base
very
it
strong.
purely on my experience. If I watch this probably standard, I'd probably be bored. But it's just the dumbness is just underlined 5 fucking times when you're watching this in 4DX. It makes it so much better. It is so fun. I mean, this is the stupidest movie I've seen in like a year.
There are sequences, so like when you go down to the Hollow Earth in the Hollow Earth flying machine,
Oh, that bit's
honestly
great.
feels like it was made for 4DX. It feels like you're on Star Tours or something like that in
Yes,
Disneyland. It's
yes.
just like it feels like it was made for that in places, and then other points you just like something's thumping you in the back of your chair every time somebody gets kicked, and somebody gets freaking kicked a
Yeah.
lot. Kong kicks a lot of monkeys. You get kicked in the back of your chair constantly. It is, yeah.
There is. I think that's the thing. It just feels like Colin is kicking you.
It's just it's not the way to watch a film. And I remember like looking on Reddit because I was like, oh, you know, I've got long hair. Do I need to tie it back? Do I need? No, I was trying to see if there were like any rules behind 40X and stuff like this. And I
Tips.
saw somebody saying like, this is the future of cinema. Like this is what cinema needs. It needs to be this kind of 40 experience. And I can categorically say this is not the future of cinema.
I will agree with that. This film was just the exception to the rule for me.
I'm trying to think what films I'd go see in this, and I can't think of many.
Yeah.
I did see they're going to do Phantom Menace when they do the re-release in 40X.
Are
Having
they?
seen it in 3D in the re-release 10 years ago, and obviously in the cinema originally in 2D when I was 6 or 7. Um, I don't even know if I was 6 or 7. I was like 5. But having seen it in those two formats, I'd maybe be considering
Pod racing. That would be
40X for the
good.
pod racing. I was going to say the pod racing might be good.
You know where to find me, Alex. Hit me up.
Mm, if I'm in Plymouth during that time, I'll drop you a
Consider it.
message for the Phantom Menace re-release. But yeah, I'm not going out of my way for it. This is not the future of cinema.
Okay, so I think that's kind of a rare for us. I think. Are you saying you didn't like the film? That's what I'm getting. That's what I'm getting
Um,
at. I don't. I'm not sure. Were
film
you
film was fine. It, it does like there's part of me that's a little bit sad that it's not treated more seriously,
really?
but at the same time, it's so much stupid fun that I like that. But I just think I feel like there could be more depth and stakes to it.
Hmm.
That I don't know. It's fine. I love seeing Godzilla, even if he's well, I say even if I kind of love that he curled up in the Roman Colosseum like a dog. That was kind of my favorite stuff.
Hilarious.
More Godzilla, less Hollow Earth, and like give me more human stuff. But like I
But
feel
like,
like
if the human stuff was good, would that make the monster stuff less fun?
how difficult is it to make the human stuff good? Because I feel like all of these films have struggled with that, and yet you get a film like obviously Godzilla -1 come out and just completely nails it. Like,
Yeah.
how difficult is it? Like, can we not just hire
Well, what do you
Aaron
do though with
Sorkin or
like?
something? Like, I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
get a room together. Somebody sort it out.
Well, are we getting any more of these after this? Is this it?
100% we're getting more of these. Like
Another
God's
four. Yes, another trip. Yeah. We
no.
going again? We going again?
I'm not getting beaten up again. Yeah, no. Godzilla versus Kong came out during the pandemic. It was like one of the first films to kind of like tread the waters of like, can we do this? And I remember in the UK, it was a digital only release for a long time, and it made a lot of money despite coming out
Mhm.
in pretty much the early days of the pandemic. And it made more money than the others potentially. I might not be correct in that, but it made enough that they were like, oh shit, we this is a franchise people want to see.
Well, it
We need to
tells
make
you.
more of these. And this is doing really well so far. Godzilla, Kong, New Empire is doing really well.
I think that's a response to what the audience wants. Then I suppose. I mean, you got
Fun.
a title like Godzilla versus Kong. I mean, what are you expecting? Like an emotional thread that's going to like pull your heartstrings? No, you're expecting two big ass
Yeah.
monsters to fight each other, and I think it's actually kind of refreshing to have something that's completely intentionally dumb and not
Yeah.
just dumb. You know,
Yeah.
I kind of like it for that. But it is both. It is both. It is unintentional and intentional. It's kind of a weird
Yeah. You
in
can't
between
fully
thing,
tell if they're in on the joke at times or
which
not.
makes it funnier, I think, for me.
Yes. So yeah, no, yeah, I
I
think
mean,
it's fine. It's fine. It's not my favorite. I think this made me like Godzilla versus Kong more
right.
because looking back, I think that film was so much better done.
Yeah. Okay. I remember really liking Godzilla versus Kong, so I might rewatch that again. But at the minute where I'm standing, this is my favorite experience I've had with this monster franchise so far.
That's just
So
because you
I
like to
rec
watch me being beaten up in a chair
I
for
just I you
the
know
entirety of the film.
I think that's the thing. I'm sitting here, I'm getting thrown around. I'm having a great time. I think it's even funnier that like the people next to me on my left weren't laughing and were just taking it seriously. That also was making me laugh. And I also knew that there's this grumpy guy 2 seats next to me on my right. He shall be unnamed. He was probably hating his life.
All
So
right. First, I wasn't grumpy, and I
no.
wasn't. I was somewhat hating my life. It was a bit of a torturous experience. But I think we have to mention the beautiful cinematic experience that came before that as well, where we witnessed the man to our right pick his own ear and eat
Oh.
it several times prior to the start of the film. And that is why, ladies and gentlemen, we go to the cinema.
Yeah, Plymouth cinema happens a lot. Get used to that. With the guy whenever I went to see All of Us Strangers, he had his bicycle helmet on and it was I was sneezing for 15 minutes and then was swearing at himself for doing it.
Yeah.
you
Oh,
know.
Earwax guy was sneezing quite a lot as well, wasn't
Was
he?
he? It might have been the
Yeah.
same guy.
Just too many. He's probably picked his orifices way too many times and
Oh
damaged for
man.
life.
And like it wasn't even you sitting beside him. It was your fiance M, and poor her for having to deal
Poor,
with that.
poor her.
Nobody offered to swap seats
I
with her.
did offer to switch. I did offer to switch. Thankfully, there was like a little gap between them, so like it wasn't the end of the world. But yeah, we did watch a guy eat his own earwax multiple times.
There you go, guys. What does
Stomach
it,
churning
cinema doesn't
stuff.
get better than this.
This is the future of cinema.
Absolutely. I will be watching The Color Purple on 40X next week.
Nice. Well, shall we get into our what we promised was going to be the main part of this episode a
Yeah.
couple of weeks
We
ago?
had our Netflix double bill the other week. We're not having our Prime
Amazon
double bill.
Prime double bill. I think we both start. Actually, no, that's a lie. We both didn't start with Ricky Stanicky, but it was the first film to come out uh, as a relatively big release on Prime.
Yeah.
But obviously, Roadhouse being the biggest one, and I think it's racking up quite a lot of views as well. But yeah, I mean, Ricky Stanicky. Should we go into that one first? Because there's probably less to say about Ricky Stanicky, despite the fact that I liked it more than Roadhouse.
We are both in the same camp there. I definitely like this a lot more. I was expecting really another mid comedy brought out by a streaming service. Seems like those are so common right now. Those sort of 2.5 star, really meh comedies. I was really pleasantly surprised by Ricky Stanicky. Actually, I thought it was a real throwback, but in a real positive way. It reminded me of those sort of Adam McKay comedies, but mixed with some of the good elements of Adam Sandler comedies too.
Mm.
Um, I
I,
mean, go for it.
well, I was going to say it was from Peter Farrelly, who is obviously, uh, a big kind of name within the comedy world. I would, a lot of hit or miss comedies, a lot of comedies that maybe haven't aged as
Movie
well.
43. I'm looking at you.
Yeah, movie 43, Shallow Hal, The Dumb and Dumbers, and then maybe a film that isn't a comedy but also hasn't aged well, The Green Book. But
um,
yeah, he has a lot of films that don't particularly age well. But
I think
yeah,
I think
Ricky's.
I think the one that everybody sort of would agree is There's Something About Mary, right? I think everybody that's like he's probably wrote that was kind of the career starter for him.
Yes, yeah, yeah. Though I have a lot of time for Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah,
He did
as
the
a kid I
original
liked
Dumb
it.
and Dumber, didn't he? Yes, yeah.
Yeah. I haven't seen it since a kid. I liked it as a kid, but I'm scared I wouldn't like it as an adult, so I'm not gonna.
I watched it. I watched it during the pandemic because I went through a bit of a comedy film thing. So I watched it a couple years
That makes
ago,
sense.
and yeah, no, it was good. Yeah, I still very much liked it. I needed that kind of easygoing film at the time. And Ricky Stanicky kind of harkens back to those kinds of films where it feels like a mid 2000s uh, kind of film that you'd put on at a sleepover that you probably wouldn't want your parents to know you were watching,
Yeah.
because it's got a couple of rude bits in it. But it is about these three childhood best friends who have this excuse to get out of things when it goes wrong, in the fact that their other friend Ricky Stanicky did it, and they've been using this excuse throughout their childhood and now into their adulthood, where they'll be like, "Oh, Ricky's got cancer. We got to go off and see him," but using it as like it's pretty
These
diabolical.
these guys are like the worst people in the world.
Yeah, they really are. They use it to get out of doing anything, so they can just go have like a lads party, or
And completely
go to
justify
Vegas,
themselves,
and
and
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and their wives and other halves are starting to catch on. So much so that they need to bring the real Ricky Stanicky into their life, which obviously they can't. So they pay uh, an actor of sorts. He does a lot of masturbation comedy on the roots in
Yeah,
Vegas.
he does a one-man show in Vegas where he dresses up as famous pop stars, but he mixes their songs with words to do with masturbation.
And that
It's
is
very specific.
Rod Reinstead, played by John Cena,
Yeah.
who comes into their life, and yeah, they hire him to pretend to be Ricky Stanicky, which he does almost too well, to the fact that he kind of ingrains himself further into their life as he gets hired by their firm, and all this kind of stuff that goes on. Those kind of comedy of errors where everything just gets so out of hand and the lie gets bigger and bigger
Yeah.
until it's about to burst. And yeah, I had a lot of fun with this.
Yeah, me too, man. John Cena is kind of making the most of this. He is so lovable in this movie. I don't know why. He is just like being such a good sport and taking everything that's being handed with him and trying to make it as funny as possible. I think the dynamic between the guys is really good. You got Zac Efron in here, Andrew Santino. There's some big sort of comedy names in this too. Even got like William H Macy shows up for a while too. But
Yes,
yeah,
yeah.
it is just this sort of thing. I think it goes on a little bit too long. It's nearly 2 hours long, this film, and it's like
Yes.
there's a middle part in particular where when they hire Ricky, or the fake Ricky, to turn up at a house, it kind of goes on in that scene for about half an hour. This whole sort of like shenanigan of him trying to put up his performance. But apart from that, though, like I was just kind of enjoying the whole ride of this movie. It's not perfect by any means, and there's a lot of fat on it. But there's just like so many irreverent humor jokes in this movie. Like it just feels like very throwbacky in terms of we're having a conversation in an apartment with two guys that's got nothing to do with the plot. We've gone completely off the wall here. It's like Anchorman for a minute here. It's just like, what are we even talking about right now?
Yeah.
Um, and I just love the whole aimlessness of it. And it just felt very, even though it was about horrible people, there was something good natured and something about everybody was just enjoying this project. That I was like, I don't understand. I was kind of having a really good time with it. Yeah, it took me by surprise, is all.
Yeah, it took me by surprise as well, because you go into these things, and I wanted to see it because I do like the comedic turn that John Cena has done in previous projects. I'm a big Zac Efron fan. Even prior to the Iron Claw, I think he's quite an interesting dude, and he's very different here again than he is to the
Yeah.
Iron Claw. Though he gets, I guess, less of the
He's
comedy,
got
and
the
he's more of the
straight
straight
role
guy.
in this.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Though he is the main perpetrator of the lie, I would say.
Yeah.
Along with
Well, I
the
think
ginger guy, who I
Andrew Santino, who plays the friend JT, I think he's the worst though, because he's more shameless about it. He'll go. He gets guilt the last, I think, on this. I think Efron has a conscience sort of halfway through the movie, but
yeah.
JT's just like, I'm gonna ride this train as long as I can. He just doesn't want to get in trouble. That's the only thing he cares about.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think it's because he's used the excuse way too many times, to the point where he's just like, "Wouldn't it sound ridiculous if I told my wife this?" And then she realized that,
Yeah, well,
like,
he missed her birth, or his child's birth, because he wanted to go party in Las Vegas. So
yeah, he's not a great guy. He's like a podcaster, isn't he?
yeah, he does that
I think
Bad
that's all.
Friends podcast.
Yeah, I think that's where I know him from most, but only from like clips on TikTok of that. I haven't
Yeah,
actually listened to the full show, but yeah, he's fine here. I don't think he gets. I mean, like, I don't think the film's consistently funny enough to make me think that, like, any of these guys are like the next big thing in comedy, but
Yeah. It's
it's
it's it's like nearly a classic in a way. It's not quite there. There's
no.
like there are it is such a nearly film in that way. And I do that sounds bad, but I'm overly positive about this film actually overall. But from being a movie that I will turn on once a year, it's just not quite there. If you take half an hour off it and tighten up the jokes a little bit, I think it's pretty. It could be a classic. But
Yeah, it's such a funny premise. And I think that's what got me. I just think like the premise is great. John Cena is great when he turns up at the airport with just like a
a bin bag.
a bin bag as a
Wi-
suitcase.
but it's still got the baggage sticker on it, which is even funnier.
So good. And then all the three guys are there being like, please don't be the guy with the bin bag. Please don't be the guy with the bin bag.
Yeah, he also dresses up as Britney Spears as well, so that's pretty funny.
Yes. Yeah, it is really funny. It is really funny. It is one of those films that there's a few like I don't know if you'd call them like homophobic jokes because obviously uh one of the characters is gay in it. So but there's that feeling of just like, ooh, that joke feels like it's like crossing the line almost, but then you realize no, it's probably not. But
No,
if
I
it
don't
was
think
if it
so.
came out in 2002, there'd be no gay characters in this, and it would be crossing the line.
Yeah, I think it's just got a positive relationship with that sort of joke.
Yeah.
I think it's self aware, but it's also it's just a funny punchline sometimes. In
Yeah.
this context of these characters. Yeah, there's nothing aggressive about it. I don't
No.
think anyway.
I just think there are a few moments where you just like
It catches you off guard. Yeah,
this is they used to get away with this back in 2002. I don't think you get away with it as much anymore. But it's a very silly film. It's a very silly film. I really liked it. I think I really liked it.
yeah. I would really recommend this to anybody who just wants to like really kick back and have a laugh. To be honest, because there's not many films I think at the minute that deliver on that basis. I don't know if you
No.
feel the same way, but I think comedy's kind of at a lull in film.
Yeah, I want more of these, and unfortunately, these will go to streaming if they ever get made.
Yeah,
Yeah, give me
which
a
I
more.
think is why there's a lot of fat on these sort of movies. There's not as much control on like tightening the screws a little bit, so they kind of go out in a very loose state.
But yeah, I do want more of this. I'm glad Prime obviously gave Peter Farrelly the money to do it. I don't think this kind of thing would get made on Netflix as much as I would like it. Them being the guys with all the money, it would be
Yeah,
nice if they were making stuff like this as well. But I just don't see them riding this wave. I think they'll buy in the comedies from Sony, like they did with the Jennifer Lawrence one. What was it? No Hard Feelings. Like
oh
that was
yeah.
that felt like a bit of a throwback to these kind of comedies as
Yeah,
well.
that's a very good
Um,
comparison, actually. Yeah,
I think No Hard Feelings was funnier, but it also had more heart as well. So maybe it's just a more well-rounded film. But yeah, if you just want a stupid, silly time, then this is the comedy film. Yeah, I want more movies like this. Like it didn't blow my world up, but I had a fun evening watching this.
yeah. But if you want a really stupid time, and then that's just it, you go to Roadhouse, right?
Yeah, yeah. I'm not even sure you'd go for a fun time. Yeah. Should we get into the second Amazon Prime
Yeah,
film, which is kind of the film which seems to be getting a bit of attention online, but I guess in terms of a streaming release, it's got a pretty big name attached to it with Jake Gyllenhaal. Doug Liman is the director who did Edge of Tomorrow, so you got a pretty good director attached to it as well. It's remaking an 80s kind of beloved cult classic,
yeah,
um, which I must say neither of us have seen the original, so we can't really compare to the original, but it definitely feels like the 80s B movie sensibilities uh, were loaded into this film,
yes.
but
It's certainly
maybe
trying to
we're at
evoke that.
odds
Yeah,
with the time period and don't really, or at least work with some of the kind of ugly CGI streaminess that you get from the film.
yeah. This movie's pretty hideous to look at. I hate to say it, but I was kind of almost encouraged the first 15 minutes watching this, Alex. Like me, I was over at my parents in Northern Ireland, and Lauren was with me. Sat down to watch this with my dad, and we were all like in a really good mood putting this movie on. First 15 minutes, there's like a fight scene in the car park inside outside the Roadhouse, which is
Mm,
kind of funny. It was almost kind of promising in a way that led to kind of a really funny punch joke, punchline at the end of that fight. Um, but then it really just completely took a nosedive and continued to plummet further and further and further as the movie went on. I think it has a real mishandling of its sub stories and its side characters, wanting to showcase other people but never feeling confident in all of them. And right, it shouldn't, because none of them really work. Um, it's a You never have a real grip on Gyllenhaal's character, and then you throw in Conor McGregor. He For me, I've been pretty vocal about this off podcast. Does not work at all. Um, I don't think a character's ever not worked in a film more for me. Um, I was I was not enjoying what I was seeing on the screen, Alex.
see,
I'm being so diplomatic. If you know me, I'm being really like straight right
I disagree because I'm afraid of Conor McGregor,
now.
and
It's
he
okay.
will kill me. No, I'm joking. Yeah. Well, for anybody who hasn't seen Roadhouse, it is about an ex UFC fighter called Dalton, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, who takes a job as a bouncer at a roadhouse called the Roadhouse, only to discover that there's kind of like more going on here, like people wanting to take the land for smuggling situations, and then you throw in the kind of villain, or not. He's not even a villain, he's just like the loaded gun that's the only kind of athletic equivalent to, an ex UFC fighter is, real life ex UFC fighter Conor McGregor, to kind of fight Jake Gyllenhaal.
Is there a main villain in this though? Isn't it like, because you have
Well,
Billy Magnuson, he's playing this sort of daddy's boy, rich asshole. He points a gun at everybody, but like him and Conor McGregor, I guess they kind of share top villain together, don't they? It's kind of weird.
yeah, well, it's almost like Conor McGregor is just the loaded gun to Billy Magnuson's true villain.
He's the heavy, yeah.
But even then, Billy Magnuson doesn't hire him in. It's his dad, because his
Y-
dad thinks that he's effing everything up,
Yeah.
which he is. But then I didn't particularly think Billy Magnuson was great in this. And again, like, I don't
But
particularly.
he has been good. I've seen him. He's been good in
Yeah,
things.
yeah. No, I was gonna say I don't think it's anybody's fault, but the scripts and potentially the editing as well, of just like you're not really given much to go on. And I feel like I might be confusing him with somebody else, but I feel like I've seen Billy Magnuson in roles like this previously. And or maybe I've just seen like this kind of stereotypical role, and I just was bored of seeing him. And I don't know, nobody really worked here, but I completely disagree. Where I actually think Conor McGregor really worked
I'll
in the
fight you
film.
now.
He really worked in the film
I will fight you right here, Alex.
because because he d- he isn't really acting. He's just kind of thrown in there. It feels like they're feeding lines to him,
He is trying to act, and he thinks he's doing it well.
and it definitely feels like he's turned up and he's just kind of grumbling his way through the role. He's then re-recorded his lines on top of it. You still don't fully understand what he's saying half the time, but he's such a psychopath in the film that he did come across as terrifying, and that's kind of what you needed that role to be, was just somebody whose mere presence is just terrifying and endangers the life of your protagonist. Jake Gyllenhaal's going to win in the end, but
Sure.
there was an element of like, how's he going to beat this guy? This guy is just a bit of a psycho. And I think Conor McGregor plays it well. Like, tell me who else could have gone in that role and played it to that terrifying degree. And it maybe is an element of just like, can you separate the man from the character? There's an
Like,
element of just like,
I don't
that
think it's
is
just
Conor McGregor.
I don't think it's McGregor's fault completely. I think it's also a really badly written character
Yeah, but
who's
I'm saying it's good. I'm saying it's good. I'm saying who else you put in that role that has this is the first time we've seen him in
That's
a film like this. I think you
that's gr
choose
it's
up the
great
scenery.
it's great that it worked for you, man. I'm really happy for you. It didn't work for me. I
Were
hated
you
it.
not terrified of him at all?
No, I was just annoyed. I don't have any I probably know less about Conor McGregor than anybody listening to this podcast. I do not engage with anything that related to UFC, so I have no idea about his persona off screen. I just knew I
Not a
saw
good guy.
like yeah, I've sort of heard, but but then I watch him on screen and I'm like, what is this on my screen? Just get it off.
I, I didn't feel that way. I thought like
No, it's fine.
it was the true only kind of bit that did feel like an 80s B movie was having somebody come in who couldn't act to play the scary villain role and them doing it so well despite the fact that they're not at the equal parts of good and bad all at the same time. And that bit worked for me, and I think he was the kind of good equivalent to some kind of random 80s sports personality that you'd put into this and just be
Yeah,
like, go
Like
fight
a
the
Dolph
tough guy.
Lundgren or something like that. Right,
Yeah, like
okay.
that completely worked for me.
That's what I think. I
Whereas,
think they were going for that. They were definitely trying to aim for that, and I just don't know if
yeah,
it translated at all.
and Jake Gyllenhaal's fine. I don't think he does anything terrible in this. He's it, it, it,
It's very boring.
it's quite a boring role, I would say. I guess he gets to do a lot of punching people, and the punches are quite well done. It's a very smacky film. There's a lot of
Yeah,
smacks, and the violence is quite brutal. I would say. You watch it doesn't really wince away from watching people get punched in the face. It just kind of like happens.
yeah,
If that makes sense, you see contact is made. It looks like
yeah.
it. It's
I,
very
I didn't.
convincing contact.
I think the strongest parts of the film, you're right, is when Jake Gyllenhaal is beating the crap out of guys.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is this bar they're going to? Every time, every night at this bar, everybody just starts beating the shit out of each
Yeah,
other.
I didn't
And
understand why like anybody would play music there. I thought
I
that
said that when I watched the movie. I said everybody in the room was like, "Why do people? How do they keep booking people here every night?"
it just yeah. There's so much didn't work, but
There's a romance in here that doesn't work at all with Ellie.
no.
Like I can't tell you I can't remember anything that happened in that storyline. And her father, played by Joaquin de Almeida, who plays the sheriff, he
Yeah.
is equally like as egregious as Conor McGregor for me. I thought he was just the most dull kind of anti-villain
Yeah, see,
ever.
I agree with you there. Like he doesn't do anything
He
for
doesn't
me.
pop, no.
Conor McGregor does. And but
I
also
think it solicited a reaction. Okay, I'll give you that.
it did. And I think the biggest crime here was the atrocious use of kind of weird CGI camera transitions.
Yeah.
Cars
To
would
the
hit
yeah.
people and it would almost like the camera would spin in this very awkward, clumsy way
Oh, there's the
that
bridge scene
the
whenever the
bridge
car
scene's awful,
when
right?
they run him over, and it's like it looks like the car is like a PlayStation 2 model, and it's going like it
Yes.
doesn't look like it's going a speed that I've ever seen in my life. It's like it's just weird. It looks like a model going across the screen, and then it's suddenly he's in the water, and then it's the next day, and it's like it never happened, and it's like what just happened?
Yeah, it just comes out of nowhere, doesn't it? And you don't fully understand what's going on. I mean, Jake Gyllenhaal can survive being stabbed and punched and run over and all
Probably
kinds of
could.
stuff. Like there's lots of this that looks like a video game, and a lot of it has to do with the vehicles and the weird kind of, uh, you know,
The weird
camera that
transition shots to the
lingers.
roadhouse sometimes, like
Yeah,
they get like a crane shot that goes towards the roadhouse, and there's like some Caribbean music playing, and they literally just stick there's just CGI trees around, and it's just weird.
it
Yeah,
is really odd, and I do wonder because Doug Liman was quite upset in the run up to this film with the fact that it was going on streaming, and he had a big thing that said like, oh, Amazon said they were going to give it like a cinema release and all this kind of stuff. And even Jake Gyllenhaal came out and said like, no, it was always intended for streaming, so like clearly something has gotten lost there. But I do wonder if Jake Gyllenhaal's trying to like keep his relationship friendly with Amazon. And I think potentially this film was supposed to have a cinema release, but would you have released it looking like it did in cinema? There's an element of like, I'd like to watch this with a crowd, but then there's an element of like, I think I would have hated it more just you can't blow something this ugly up on the big screen.
Yeah. Yeah. Are how are people responding to this generally? Are people liking
Uh,
this? I mean,
it,
it's still number one on Prime to this day of recording.
it's mixed to low, isn't it? I don't think anybody's rated it highly. I think people kind of middling on it in terms of like having a bit of fun with it.
Mhm.
But I kind of went down the lower end of I really enjoyed it for the first like half an hour or so, and then it just
I'm
kind
the
of
same as you.
the bigger it got, the worse it became. And those early fight scenes are quite contained to a car park, and it's just people fist fighting, and that works. And but then by the end, when it's yachts and explosions and
Yes.
boats crashing
And
into things,
and
and
more characters come in, it just gets a really messy. I think, oh, you're so right. I mean, if they kept it to just like keep it old school 80s, like Jake Gyllenhaal just comes into a bar and he has to deal with this one group, like, and that's it. Like he just like a to and fro between the bar people and the assholes coming in. I mean, you could have just made a good story out of that and made
yeah,
that more like a fun throwback. And yeah, like you said, the broader it became, the more of a mess it became.
I am intrigued to see the original Roadhouse. Are you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so ashamed I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I want to watch that.
My dad wanted to watch this one because he's such a big fan of the original.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Has he seen this one yet?
Oh, yeah, we watched it together.
Oh, there you
Oh
go.
yeah,
And
he hated it.
gotcha. Is there a big kind of non-actor fighter playing the Conor McGregor part in the original? Do we know? Is it like Mike
I
Tyson or
don't
something?
I don't know. I mean, like one of my dad's favorite movies is Bloodsport with Jean-Claude Van Damme. So my dad's a big fan of those sort of like schlocky 80s sports fighting movies.
Yeah,
Um, but it was full of those sort of like performances back then. But I don't know, they got it right then at least. I don't know why.
apparently so. Apparently so. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'll watch it at some point. Maybe I'll watch it with you. Who knows?
Oh,
Who
Sam
knows?
Elliott's in the original one. That's
Sam Elliott
instantly.
is in the
Yeah.
original. But yeah, I mean, yeah, if I was to take anything away from this film, would be like, I had fun with Conor McGregor, and I know you feel completely differently.
Okay. Well, I think it's the worst movie of the week. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, 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 easy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Not a recommend here, guys.
Was
Yeah.
it?
I can't
Was it?
recommend it to anybody.
No. In terms of our Netflix and Amazon Prime double bill, who had the upper hand for you?
Oh, that's so hard because I do really like Ricky. I like Ricky Stanicky more than I like Damsel and Spaceman.
Spaceman. But
I'm
I
gonna
like
say
Damsel more than Roadhouse. But I do think I like Roadhouse more than Spaceman. So I think Amazon Prime tops it for me.
I'm the same as you. Damsel's okay, but it's nothing to be excited about. At least with Roadhouse, I got a response of anger from that, and I really liked. And Ricky Sneaky's a film that I probably would watch again out of all four of them.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go with Prime by a smidge. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm with you. They
Disney Plus next week. No.
yeah, yeah, double bill of Star Wars and Avengers.
Elemental.
Yeah. No, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know, Roadhouse. I don't know. And I don't know Amazon Prime. And they put ads on there now as well, which is
I thought that when we started the movie, I was like, "What's
yeah.
going on? Has my subscription been lower tariffed or something?" I was
At
like,
least
"Yeah."
Netflix had the they at least told you, they were like, by the way, if you want a cheaper subscription, it'll have ads, but you can go back to paying a reasonable price for the kind of shit content we produce.
Yeah.
Amazon Prime were like, same price, more ads, and if you don't want them like you used to, you have to pay more. And it's like, screw you, Amazon. I think somebody's taken them to court over that. I'm not sure if that decision will be reversed, but yeah.
That's us never getting sponsored by Amazon. Thanks, Alex.
I
Ruined
never
that
said
for us.
Amazon produced shit content, but I might have said
We
it.
told them that they won the war today.
Who? Yeah, exactly. Amazon are fine. I didn't say they produce shit content. I said Netflix did.
Okay. Well, they both hit us.
Maybe I'm ruining our future prospects. Both are fine.
can we finish this on a high note? We are returning back to BFI. Number what on the list, Alex? Do you know at the top of your head where
Uh
this ranks?
ooh, 30 something.
Oh,
Let me have a look.
fairly high.
Yeah. So this is um well, should we go into the series for any newcomers? This is the series where we watch the blind spots that Chris and I have from the Sight and Sound greatest films of all time list. We are now on number 38, according to the ranking numbers on the letterbox list, which is Jean Luc Godard's Breathless, a film that I have seen and Chris has not. It
Yeah.
is our final Jean Luc Godard film on the list. So far, he's had Content, or Contempt, should I say,
Hmm.
Pierre Le Fou, and Histoire du Cinéma, uh, which you still need to borrow the box off me.
Oh yeah, you were
You
supposed to
keep.
get.
I
Yes,
gave it to you.
I
You
forgot. Yeah,
intentionally left it. you
I didn't
intentionally
intentionally
left.
leave it.
You intentionally
Um,
left it.
yeah.
Uh, so yeah, Breathless is the film that ranks highest on this list. I'm pretty sure it's the final one of his. It is also his first film. It's a 1960 film about a thief who steals a car, murders a policeman, and then tries to escape authorities by kind of going into hiding with his previous American ex
On and off.
girlfriend.
Yeah.
Yeah, some kind of thing going on behind them, who he wants to run away with. But in classic Jean Luc Godard kind of style, in the way of like it has just its own. It marches to its own beat, I would say. It is a film that is famous for its many jump cuts and just completely define the conventions of a standard American crime thriller that would have happened in this time period. And Jean Luc Godard was all about this. He was very big on taking what you know about movies and turning it on its head and just being completely out there with style. And this was one of the films that kind of kickstarted the French New Wave, I believe.
Hmm.
If not kickstarted it, it is like the seminal film of French New Wave. You think of French New Wave, you think of this film. Um, what did you think?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of things meeting together, and that's probably why it feels like the start of this age. Yeah, I think interesting you mentioned the jump cuts because I think that's the most overt and sort of liberally used technique in the film, which I thought was really cool and very thematic. But reading this, actually, apparently the film was originally half an hour too long. So Jean Luc Godard just basically took out a pair of scissors and took out all the scenes that he felt, or the parts of the scenes he felt that elongated it or made it boring. Um, but it just so happened that it thematically enriched the movie, which
Well,
I thought
that kind of yeah, that sounds about
that's the whole
right.
thing. Yeah.
I did hear that the editors and like anybody involved with the filming of the film had no idea that it was going to be edited in quite this kind of fashion, and there was no kind of idea going into it that this was the way it was going to be. But I think Jean Luc Godard kept things pretty close to his chest. He had a screenplay was essentially like these ideas, and then he would turn up to the set, and if he was feeling it, he'd film this, and he'd be writing scenes
Yeah.
for the actors at the
He
same
wrote
time.
every morning, every breakfast, he wrote the scenes for the day, I think.
Yeah, there was a lot of improvisation, which is kind of mad because they didn't actually. There was no kind of recorded sound on this. They re-recorded all the lines, so
Mhm.
having to kind of remember what you said and then make it match what was going on in the actual film itself must have been quite confusing at times. Because for a crime film, there's as there was in Contempt, there's a large middle portion of this film that's just set in an apartment and is just
Yeah.
dialogue
And
between
especially the jump cuts
two
as
people.
well. That must be really awkward to edit
Yeah,
together. Yeah. I didn't even notice that as they must have done that really well because usually I'm very good at spotting that in films, but yeah, I didn't really notice the dubbing that much. So that's actually quite impressive. Um,
100% ADR.
Yeah. Um, this movie is like really cool. That's the thing I take away from this the most.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing Jean-Luc Godard's so good at is making cigarettes just look so cool.
Yes.
I in movies and I actually kind of thought a lot about. I know this obviously comes afterwards, but I thought a lot about early Martin Scorsese when I watched this
Okay.
in terms of how the movie looked. They had a little bit of that, like that a little bit of that. Um, his early sort of work with on Mean Streets. It kind of had that feeling to it, that sort of loose, cool, just hanging out with the characters a little bit. And that is a theme of Jean-Luc Godard in general. This aimlessness. You kind of
Yes.
have to untrain yourself to be like, oh, I'm where's the plot? Where's the narrative here?
Yeah.
There is sort of, but it is just kind of about following these two characters. One of which, Jean-Paul Belmondo, who was in Pierre Le
Pierre
Fou.
LeFou. Yep.
He plays Michel, who's
He's
this
a
sort
very
of like,
sexy guy.
I think he's more sexy in Pierre Le Fou. I think,
Yeah, he is.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's a little bit more intentionally. He's quite an awkward looking person on screen here.
Mm.
This guy who fashions himself after like American noir film, especially Humphrey Bogart. Like he
Yes.
literally goes up to a Bogart poster and like is just trying to mirror himself off that. So he's like trying to force this life of being a rogue, being like living life to the minute. And it's diametrically opposed to Jean Seberg's character Patricia, who is this old flame, and she works for the French version of the New York Tribune. So you get kind of hands out papers on the street, and that's what's kind of interesting about this movie for me. What really stood for me was it seemed very interested in America
Yes.
and France's relationship with America. Whether
Consumerism as well, like how
Yeah,
that infiltrates your life and your kind of understanding of the world.
and I couldn't get a grip on whether he was pro it or it was negative, or whether it was something that was a love hate relationship between the two countries. I find that
I th-
quite
I
fascinating.
I think that's what it is. I think because he came from Cahiers du Cinema, which was a film criticism magazine. Jean-Luc Godard's one of those people who loves movies. I think you can tell he loves American noir movies in particular,
100%.
but he thinks they could be better. And I think he is also kind of maybe somewhat disgusted at kind of American overconsumption and consumerism, and I think that really trickles in here. And I think you're right when you say it's kind of a love hate relationship with it. I think that is definitely what it is. Though I do find it very interesting that your French character is the guy obsessed with movies, and your
Mm,
American character is she's obsessed more with art and life and kind of things that would
yeah.
maybe be deemed to be more kind of real.
So it could be confessional on Godard's part. Yeah, like even the way the film is shot a lot of the time, the way we are introduced to Patricia when she's walking down the street, it reminded me of watching a Bogart film when we're like introduced to the femme fatale in this way, where she's already halfway through her working job, and they're talking down the street. There's so much of it is on it's wearing on its sleeve, and yeah, it's just kind of hanging out with these characters. I think it for me, it is what I appreciate about the film is a lot in its aesthetic. Um, I still have that thing where I'm just not super emotionally attached to these characters. I am beguiled and fascinated by how they got to where they got to, because they do act in such very human ways, because they act so peculiar, like in such a peculiar way, especially Patricia, because she is hanging around with a guy who is really no good for her and brings her
Yes.
down, is very just only wants to have sex with her.
Yes.
She's potentially carrying his baby, although like what prospect have they got for that no, but really at this point they are both as aimless as each other. And Michelle is just down this downward trajectory from the start of the film, from the murder onward. So there's this real sort of sense of dread and a nihilistic sort of look at relationships and how toxic they can be, and when
Mm,
kind of awkwardly paired. And her sort of how she's sort of just detached from this relationship in a way.
mm,
He is saying such lurid, scary things to her on a very frequent basis, and she neither responds emphatically or negatively. It's just sort of like we've been down this road so many times. And yeah, it's fascinating to watch these characters kind of exist in this space and kind of ponder about them and how
Yeah.
they tick.
I think there's something quite charming about Jean-Paul Belmondo in this, despite his creepiness. And I
Yeah,
think that's where you can kind of understand Gene Serberg's character kind of, kind of falling for it, but at the same time being like, "Oh, you just get away, like you're being silly."
he is a
Like she
child.
doesn't
Yeah,
really put up with his shit too much. She just kind of
she knows how to deal with him, which
yeah,
is to be passive,
which
which is
is
almost
interesting because subsequently watched the American remake of this
Richard
after
Gere. Yeah,
yeah, the Richard Gere one afterwards, and that was the one part in the American film which didn't really work for me. Was Richard Gere wasn't I didn't buy into the charm as much, and his character seems a lot scarier, and yet
I can see that.
the female character went along with it a lot more to the point where you're like, "What are you
Yeah,
doing? This guy's obviously bad."
much more
Whereas
American Gigolo, was it? Yeah.
I didn't get that with here. I wasn't like, "You silly lady." I was just like, I kind of knew she'd get herself out of it. Like there was an element of that where it was like I didn't feel like he was manipulating her. I knew she'd be like at some point she'd know when to call it quits, which she does.
Yeah, yeah. I think the decision's made for her anyway.
Yeah.
um, yeah, it has a bit of a tragic ending, but yeah, I really John Luc Godard's in this film actually himself. I think I noticed him in this film as a kind of the snitch character. Um, he turns up here, but yeah, I was quite impressed by it. I don't know if it's my. I think Alphaville's still top for me. That was the one I kind of emotionally responded to the most in terms
Mm,
of like how he just used cinema to such a sparing degree, but made something pretty magnificent out of it.
mm,
I can completely understand why this is so important because it's at a crossroads in French cinema and world cinema in general, and just introducing new ideas and meshing genres together. And I really like its sort of hand on American noir fiction. I think that's really cool, but I'm still a little bit emotionally detached. I like this a lot, though. I like this a lot,
yeah.
but it's not something I'm in love with emphatically. I'm a bit disappointed that I'm not quite there with Godard yet. Maybe there's still a film in there that I will completely fall head over heels for, but
He
I appreciate it, and that's
yeah,
where I'm at.
he's very much a love-hate guy, and, it is interesting, people do seem to be quite split on him. Um, I do recommend watching the American one though. Few people, including Mark Commode, prefer it to the original, and I think it was kind of a big inspiration for Tarantino as well. But I think Godard in general was an inspiration for Tarantino as well, which you can kind of understand with the there's a lot of callbacks to other films, and it's very pulpy, and it plays around with genre and all that kind of stuff. You can see Tarantino loving this kind of thing, but yeah, I'm with you. I like a lot of Godard, but I also hate a lot of Godard's films as well. So
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I'm well up for like I want to do all of it. I want to explore it all before I have a final say on it because
mm,
I find each one of his experiences is not like the last, even though a lot of his themes and relationship, you know, sort of dynamics are similar. You can't really pin him down, which I
no,
think which he's always trying to do, obviously.
yeah,
But he is endlessly fascinating nonetheless, and I completely respect that.
yeah, no, he's very very interesting films. But yeah, you gotta get onto Histoire du Cinema, which is very intriguing piece of
Yeah,
work from him.
a long piece of work.
Yeah, well, it's episodic.
There you go. We're here to come. We're here to the end, baby.
Nice one, nice one. Well, there you go, guys. Bumper episode. Four films we've chatted about there. I'm not 100% sure what the next episode is going to be about, but we'll make it about something.
Yeah, we are actually away on holiday together this weekend. Um, actually, me and Alex.
So it
um,
depends. We know
so
we
we are
definitely
going to
have
watch some
one
film
film lined
movies.
up. yeah, we have The Irish Wish lined up, another Netflix movie with Lindsay Lohan.
Yeah.
Mainly because you know a little bit about Irish wishes, Chris.
Oh yeah. I live at the end of a rainbow.
Yeah, exactly.
I grew up in a pot of gold.
So yeah, you really wanted to watch this film.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. It was completely one-sided argument. Everybody. I had to really twist your arm, didn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
On top of that, if we get round to the next BFI Science Sound film, it will be Fritz Lang's M. We
Mm.
were both a big fan of his silent film Metropolis. This is one of his first talkies, if not his first talkie.
Uh-huh.
Um, and yeah, supposed to be very good. It's one of those ones I've always wanted to see, so I'm quite
I'm
excited to
excited. Yeah.
catch up with that one. And then if there's any new releases, we'll be there to catch them. So
We try our best.
we try our best. But yeah, we hope you enjoy the surprise little addition of Godzilla Kong: A New Empire 4DX.
Yeah. See it if you can in 40X. I know Alex will tell you no, but I'm telling you do it. Do it.
If you like being beaten up in your chair, then go
For
ahead.
for £20,
Yeah,
like British pounds,
it
or
was,
like $25.
it was expensive self torture.
He's exaggerating. He's just old. He's hit 30 now and it's all downhill.
But that's been our episode for this week. If you can drop us a rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to this podcast, all the ratings and reviews help. Especially if you can write a little something on Apple, that always helps boost the podcast. If you're on Spotify, then we try put a little poll or question, like a Q&A thing. If you just scroll down from the episode, and that should be underneath there. So get engaged and join along. I believe this is our 90th episode, Chris.
Wow.
I think. If not, next week, and I'll edit this out, but I'm pretty sure.
Sue's gonna have to make another cake soon.
we're only 10 away from the big 100. So who knows what we'll do for that. We'll have to start thinking of some ideas how to go big on episode 100. But yeah, so that's been the episode for this week. I'm Chris. No, I'm not. I'm Alex.
And I'm Alex. I'm Chris.
Goodbye. Good night. Have a good time.
Oh, he thinks he's me.